I'm going to go ahead and start the recording also. So just so you're aware, the session is being recorded. So welcome everyone. Thanks for logging in for our roundtable. There's a lot of information sharing that we want to do today, and then we will have space at the end for plenty of time for questions and answers. And for those of you that are committed to teaching service learning and doing community engaged work coming up in the fall, we'll have a space at the end too that we can do some idea sharing and troubleshooting and just general support group at the end here. So we will do that as well. You can see our game plan there along the top of your screen. As you can imagine, any of these topics could probably be a workshop actually they are a workshop all in themselves. So we're just going to be scratching the surface, but hoping to provide information that's useful to you no matter where you are in your process of community engagement with our students. So for those of you that are brand new to BW, I know we have a great group of some of our new faculty joining us, so welcome. For you all, hope we can provide a really quick introduction to the Brain Center for you, who we are, and some of the resources that we provide for faculty. For everyone, we want to provide a snapshot of what things look like right now given COVID-19. I have an asterisk there because, as we know, by the time this session ends, some of these things may have changed already. So just keep that in mind. And we're going to share a few strategies, some resources for what we're utilizing for remote engagement, and overall just hoping to achieve meaningful and safe opportunities for our students and for our communities as well. So that's our goal. So anyone who's been to a Brain Center event, you know that we are always talking about the importance of civic learning in higher education. We are not the only ones that think that this is of urgent importance. There have been numerous calls to action, numerous reports from a number of national associations and organizations across the country who are really calling for us to reinvest in civic learning across the curriculum. And, you know, if we look at the challenges facing our communities today, I hope we can all agree these civic skills, the basic foundation of knowledge and values, are truly essential. I don't know that any of you have joined this session because you don't think civic engagement and civic learning is important. Hopefully we are all on that same page and can work together to think about how we make that a part of our conversation here at BW, even in this strange, hybrid and remote environment. A lot of people have said, don't we have other things to worry about right now? This pandemic, thinking about retention, funding, are we going to be able to sustain our current model of higher education? Yes, these are real concerns, but I would also say, yes, community engagement has a role to play with all of those. Community engagement, we've had so many studies recently that have shown students who are engaged in community engagement have higher retention rates. They have increased feelings of connection to campus and to their faculty, increased perceptions of professional readiness, and it goes on and on and on. We're not here advocating for community engagement because it's a nice thing to do. It is a nice thing to do, right? But we know more and more now about how these experiences impact students' overall experience, and especially the experience that they have with you in the classroom. So these are certainly worrisome times, but these are also times that we need to do more in civic learning and civic engagement, not less. The final thing I'll say here about our civic mission is that students are really seeking these opportunities. Many of us know students who are already doing this work. They're leading campaigns, they're engaging their peers, they're volunteering, they're doing all these good things. But we also want to recognize that there is a spectrum. There are some students who have not been engaged, who've never volunteered, who frankly don't even know what a nonprofit organization is, or have never explored some of the community issues that we're tackling here. There's some students who will not choose to come up to my office and find out how to get involved. But the one thing that all students have in common is that they have to take classes. And so this is an opportunity that we have to really empower this process of civic learning. So for those students and for the students already engaged, it's a great time to be thinking about how are we going to continue doing this. We heard from some students who were in service learning classes and in some of our programs when we went remote in the spring, and they said, while that could have been a lot more work and it was certainly stressful to make the changes we had to make, they felt like at least in those spaces they found meaning in what they were doing remotely, and a good change of pace. And so I think we still have an opportunity here for this to be really meaningful engagement. I'm going to get off my soapbox now and we're going to talk about the Brain Center. So for those of you that are new to BW, you might be thinking, oh, what an interesting name. And it has nothing to do with neuroscience. It does, in fact, have to do with our alumni, David and Frances Brain, who you can see pictured here. They attended Baldwin Wallace. David went on to become a successful insurance leader in the insurance industry. He attended Harvard Business School, but he always did the values of civic mindedness and the leadership development that he had to his time at BW. And he wanted to contribute back and ensure that all students had the opportunity to learn about their own leadership capabilities and how they can use those skills to enhance their communities. So we're proud to carry on their legacy with the work that we do today in the Brain Center. So for those of you that have been at BW for a long time, you remember the good days of OCO, the Office of Community Outreach. It was a volunteer hub on campus, a hub of student activism and engagement. And that was truly the heart of the work that we were doing then. As we moved into becoming the Brain Center, Julie and I really envisioned a comprehensive community engagement center. And these are the 4 pillars that as we were building that vision together, these are the 4 things that we decided we were going to focus on and have moved forward with since then. Not going to go into detail here, but happy to answer any questions. So co-curricular community engagement, this is our student leadership. This is the student community service programs, our service trips, our immersions, our summer program. This is where we started. This is the heart and core of the work that we do. And we will continue to carry on that strong legacy for sure. But we have doubled community service learning, academic service learning here at BW in the last 5 years. We have over 300 students each year now engaged in courses with community engagement components. Our Jack of Philanthropy program is nationally recognized. We've awarded $200,000 to the local community through that student-led grant program, and lots of other opportunities for faculty kind of within that space. We're also proud to serve as a convener and a connector for community organizations locally and nationally. So always happy to help you find connections to local nonprofits, and vice versa. If you have a great connection that you want to introduce us to, we're always looking for those new networks and new ways to connect our students. And then finally, all of these things really add up to us working to advance the BW mission. And so we are the squeaky wheel, continually reminding us that this is a part of our mission, that civic learning should not be optional for students and should be really truly baked in to the BW experience. So that's a little bit about how to do what we do and what our focus areas are. In terms of all the work we do with students, this is what we call our program model. And basically what this shows you is we try to create programming each year for students all along that spectrum, whether they've never volunteered a day in their life, or whether they're an active leader, someone who's engaging their peers, designing and facilitating these experiences right along with us. So that's a little bit about our student side. What's new? So anybody who knows the Brain Center knows that we don't like to sit still. We are trying to always be responsive and relevant. And so some new things that have developed even just over the summer. We are developing something called a student resource program. We know that student food insecurity is an issue on campus, and we've got some new initiatives that are going to be coming out to address that. We have hired an AmeriCorps member who will be working part-time in our office. And if you want to learn more about that, we'll be offering a session at Fall Conference that you can attend. When everything happened in March with COVID and we went remote, we knew very quickly that our students were being dramatically impacted. Many of them lost employment, whether it was internship or just paid full-time work. Many of them lost housing, and they were struggling. And so we worked to convene a committee and generate funds, and we launched an emergency grant program, which funded some emergency needs for our students this summer, and we'll be continuing into the fall. Many of you have been involved with our Civic Lead series. This is a workshop series related to racial justice. We have students who are designing a new peer-to-peer dialogue program related to racial justice coming up this fall, which you'll hear more about when that launches. And Julie has done an amazing job really working to empower students in political engagement, working with our Jackets engagement team for the fall semester. And so you'll get to hear more about that and the All-In Democracy Challenge. There'll also be a session at Fall Conference if you want to learn more. The last piece of the Brain Center, I just want to provide this as a resource for those of you who are new. These are the models that we provide for service learning courses. And so I'm not going to go into detail here. If you want to sit down and think about options related to the courses you teach, or department level where things could fit, we are more than happy to do that. But whether you're looking at designating a whole course where every student is required to engage in service, or a small group program like the Service Learning Collaborative, all the way down to just working with one individual student. Students can earn academic credit, and you can also rewarded and recognized for the work that you do with students through each of these models. So just wanted to make sure that was out there. All right, so the reason that I think most of you are here is to find out what does this all look like now? Everything I just shared was kind of in the pre-COVID world. So I want to provide some overview here of what we're doing and what we're hearing from partners, and then ways that we can move forward with all of this. So what we're seeing is a tremendous increase in community needs right now. No surprise, right? Food insecurity, childcare, needs for academic and tutoring, needs for getting public health information distributed, and just general unprecedented demand for services. But you balance that with the concern for personal safety and community safety. And so the question is, do folks really want our students coming on their sites, right? Coming into their spaces? And it's very unclear, to be completely honest. So here's some just general impacts that we can share as of 1/13 on Wednesday. At this point, we are strongly recommending remote, project-based, and virtual volunteering. This is new for us. This is not something that we've done a lot of. We've done a lot of project-based, but in terms of the virtual and remote space, we haven't. So we've been doing a lot of work to prepare for that. All of our co-curricular programs are at this point planned to be remote. So there will be no travel for alternative breaks. All of our weekly programs that usually go out, we have a program pretty much every day of the week where we provide transportation out for students. Those will all be happening remotely, as well as most of our service learning projects. And all of our large day service events at this point are canceled, but we are looking at virtual formats for many of our other events, like our service fair, the Social Change Summit. We've already done our Jacket Philanthropy Awards in a virtual format last spring. We are really committed to student safety, and so most of our team meetings are going to be happening remotely, and we're trying to come up with more and more creative ways to engage that way. And we are continually developing new risk management policies, guidelines, and ways that we can help to keep everybody safe. So we do have partners that are asking for in-person volunteers. And while we as an institution and an organization are not going to be sponsoring in-person engagement, we recognize that some students still want to be out volunteering, and that's their individual choice to do that. And there's certainly a need. So we just want to provide them the best information, and making sure that they're following all the CDC and local protocols, making sure if they don't feel well, they're not going out, following the guidelines. There's a lot of specific things and unique things about each of our organizational partners' spaces that they need to follow. And we are asking students, if you know of students that are volunteering, please make sure they're clearly documenting when they're going. If there is a case where someone gets sick or someone at one of the sites gets sick, we want to make sure we have documentation of when and where they've been there. Excuse me. And communication is key. So we're going to make sure we're communicating with our partners about our campus protocols, and vice versa. They're going to share with us all of their requirements. So you might think, okay, well, there's a lot less risk, right, if we're doing remote and virtual volunteering. And in some cases, that's true in terms of health. But we also need to be very mindful of guidelines and supervision if we're going to be engaging with minors, and protecting personal information and privacy on both ends for the volunteer and whoever the recipient of that connection is. And then, of course, something we've really been working with our partners on is thinking about these issues of technology access. And that's not just on the end of the folks from our community organizations, but also thinking about our students. Do they actually have the technology that they need to engage with partners how they expect? So these are some of the considerations that we need to think about as we're planning for this. Now, I'm not one who's going to say that we're going to find a bright side or find a silver lining in all this. I just have seen too much damage and devastation from this at this point. But I will say that this dramatic change provided a space for Julie and I to really reframe what we're doing. We didn't sit down and just say, how are we going to do what we've always done remotely? But instead, we've really truly been thinking about why we've done things historically and how we can adapt them, how we're approaching this work. We've been really talking a lot more about our commitments to equity and asset-based community engagement, and this has been an opportunity for us to really focus on that, and we'll see more of that in our strategic plan that we're working on for the next coming year. Just some updates of things that we've done this summer. We use this as an opportunity to reach out to some of our colleagues in community engagement at John Carroll and Case. We've always had a collegial relationship with them. We see them at local conferences and meetings, and we kind of, trade ideas every year. But we use this as an opportunity to really come together and build some things together. We knew that we were all going to be doing outreach to local partners. And at this point, partners are overwhelmed enough. We didn't want all of us individually reaching out with all of our surveys and questions and all these things. So we really came together to create a strategy for that. Figuring out kind of what are our unique strengths, what are the needs of each campus, and what are the unique needs of our partners, and how can we individually fulfill that. So that's been a great collaboration. We hosted our annual Community Partner Appreciation event virtually. That included some workshops and resources for partners about how they can plan on their side for virtual projects. We hosted a training in collaboration with John Carroll and Case for some of our local partners. And then we have just been really doing a lot of outreach, both to new partners, to partners that we've worked with for a long, long time. So this next slide, I had it in and I took it out, and I had it in and I took it out. If you look up anything about virtual volunteering or e-service learning, you're going to come across this framework. I'm going to be completely honest, I don't love it. I don't find it useful. They do frame e-service learning. It frees us from kind of the limits that we sometimes have on service learning. And so you're going to hear from Amy LaRocca in a little bit in some of the e-service learning that they did this summer with partners in Zambia. And so we're not restricted on where we can get students to and from like we are with traditional in-person service learning. But basically this typology just shows you, when instruction is on-site or online versus service being on-site or online. And in the article that this comes from, they kind of just break down different considerations that you need to make for each of these and the reasons that you might choose one or the other. The one that I especially like is in the very bottom right corner, where instruction is online and service is online. They call that extreme service learning. I've never done anything extreme in my life, so this is very exciting that I now get to do something extreme. So maybe some of you will join us in this endeavor this semester. As we think about planning for remote community engagement, one good thing is true, and that is that all the best practices we've already talked about with service learning still apply. So the most important thing that you should think about here is that service learning is not an add-on. Service learning should truly be designed to enhance whatever it is you're already teaching in your courses. So you take your academic content, you think about what do you want students to learn in the community, what are some of those personal growth, those hands-on skills we want them to walk away with, and that's how we're going to design what students are going to be doing. And this is true even in the remote format. Those of you who have been a part of our Faculty Fellows program, you will recognize this next slide. Service should not be an add-on to any class or experience, right? It shouldn't just be some random thing that students are asked to do. Instead, the ideal service learning situation, everything is integrated. Students can see how they're taking what they're learning in the class, they're applying it in their remote projects or their service projects, and vice versa. They're taking what they're learning from their partner experience and bringing it right back to the classroom. So you want all of those things to be tied in together. This takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and in some cases, retooling of what's included in the class to make sure you can integrate all of it. We're not going to go over all this, but if you're interested in designing a new course or bringing in remote engagement to some of your courses, these are the types of things we're going to sit down and look at. So we're going to look at the connection to your course objectives. We're going to look at how do we make this partnership beneficial both for your students and for the partners involved. How can we assess what students are learning? How can we assess what partners are getting out of this? And some of the other points that you'll see on the right are some of the things that we really include in our service learning orientation. So we certainly prioritize our student learning and our student needs, but we also want to make sure that our partners are working hand in hand with us to design these experiences. We aren't just stomping into the community and saying, here's what we want to do. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We reach out to our partners to find out what their needs are, where they are, and then try to figure out how we can connect students to that in a way that makes sense for the courses. Jim, yes, I will definitely share the PowerPoint, and I can share the recording as well, so you'll have all of this. And all of these kind of slides and snippets that you see, these are all resources that we have available in the Brain Center. So I can email you any of these documents, any of these articles. These are all things that we've created for faculty, for courses, for any program. This slide that you see here is something that we use in all of our service learning orientations, and we call it entering community. And of course, in our traditional service learning models, we literally mean you're going out and you're entering a new space or entering a new community. But even in the remote environment, we still need to make these considerations. Any community engagement experience requires a formal orientation to who they're going to be working with, what's the community context of that organization and who they're serving, and then some self-reflection of what am I bringing to this situation? What are my assumptions, my stereotypes, my previous experiences, some of those kind of things. We always like to talk to students about, what does it feel like to be on the other side of your service? What does it feel like to have a group of college students coming to your space? Whether it's a youth program or whether it's an adult literacy program, really getting students to think about those aspects. And then of course, if you're doing a remote or a virtual project, making sure students actually know how to use the technology that you're setting them up with. These are some resources. Again, I'll send out this slide. I can send you these links. Before you send out students to do service in the community, we always try to get them connected to where they're going, and especially from an asset-based approach. A lot of times with service, students just think about, oh, I'm going to a community that has a high poverty rate or high illiteracy or all these, negative health outcomes or whatever it might be. But every community also is rich with assets, and we need to make sure our students are aware of that. And so these are just some resources that even in the remote space, you can have students learning about where their organizations are situated, what communities are they connecting in and serving in, especially history. If we're dealing with issues of housing or health, there's historic policy and events that certainly influence how some of those things are appearing today. And here's another slide with just some more kind of media resources. The Fixers is a great, it's a short series of short documentaries that was created right around the time that the RNC was happening. So kind of appropriate coming up on the next election cycle. But it highlights individual stories related to some different issues like food insecurity, transportation, things like that. So just some great resources that are already easy access that students can find. We can also work with you to think about designing assignments. And so in this case, we've provided a few here that are specific to COVID. So thinking about your partner organization, how has that community been impacted by COVID-19? Or what has been the public response that may impact that particular community? And then there's a bunch of readings and a bunch of great resources that have been provided showing the intersections of some of these complex social justice issues as it relates to COVID-19. So depending on what you're tackling in your course, we're happy to help you identify some of these readings and come up with some good reflection activities or discussion topics that you can bring into your course. We're going to kind of move on here and show some more faculty resources, but I just want to re-highlight here that what happens in a community engagement course, and in this case, I mean in the classroom, is just as important as what happens with the community engagement project itself. And so what I mean by that is you can send students off and they can have a transformational experience, whether it's in community or doing some kind of remote project. But if you're not finding ways to bring that back into the classroom, to engage them with each other and to kind of challenge them on what they're learning, you're going to miss a really big opportunity. So reflection, I think reflection is the best practice in any class, but certainly with service learning, it needs to be continuous. It needs to be critical. So we can't just let students say, oh, I looked at their website and here's what I read. We need to challenge them to think a little deeper about some of these things. When possible, let's give students the chance to design, to give feedback, to take some ownership and leadership within the projects that they're working on. And we're going to hear from Amy, like I said, in a little bit about her summer experience. And I think that this would be true, making sure, especially in the remote or project-based environment, that you're giving students clear deadlines and checkpoints. We have some students that are really great planners and they can see how to get from point A to point B. And we have a lot of students, and we're all learning this still too, right? We have a lot of students that need help structuring big projects and deadlines and figuring out how they're going to get to that final goal. I read this book over the summer. I don't know. I don't think it was good. It wasn't revolutionary as I was hoping it would be, but I pulled this quote out and I just love it. It says, seeing our students as active partners in teaching and learning, co-creators of knowledge, co-partners in dialogue, it affirms and encourages their sense of agency. And in doing so, we create spaces of learning which become collaborative as opposed to performative. And that's how we can create and sustain agency. That really resonated with me. I've seen that to be true. And so thinking about ways that we can really bring students into this process, right? All right, so we are, this is just kind of a wrap-up slide here, just thinking about the planning process and some considerations that we see, especially in this remote space. So coming up with a good project plan with your partner, making sure everybody's clear on the responsibilities, what's the realistic time commitment, and what are the technology needs. Moving on to point 2, really, again, providing that strong orientation. Point 3 is communication expectations. Who is the point person at that partner organization? We will help you navigate that, but that's an important person that you're familiar with. You have their contact info. And then if your students are working on teams, we recommend that they identify a student point person so that you don't have 4 people emailing the same partner about the same question, multiple times, and really creating those ongoing check-ins so that nobody's floundering. Having those deadlines and final expectations, and then assessment and evaluation. And this is something the Brain Center can help with. But also think about how you're going to involve your partner in this process. Are they providing feedback to the students? Are they present and engaged in that final presentation? All those kind of things. We had some great examples from Jacket Philanthropy where students have gotten to present to the board of directors of various nonprofits and things like that. So what a great experience that is. Now, when we think about the remote space, these construction barrels, they're great and reflective of Ohio, but also some of the concerns that we might have, barriers here. So again, protecting client and volunteer information if you're working online, tech access barriers on both sides, really finding ways to build and nurture relationships. For those of you that have done service or service learning with your students before, it's really those personal interactions that are so meaningful for our students. Getting to get out and meet people, hear their stories. I mean, that's truly the transformational nature of this work. And so how do we do that in a remote space? We've heard from some organizations where they have volunteers writing letters to some of their community members who are involved in their programs, and just trying to build relationships that way. So some interesting creative opportunities there. And then really creating kind of a code of conduct for whatever technology you're using. So just to dig into some more faculty resources here, we can help you frame the type of project that you're looking to design. This is not comprehensive. These are just kind of snippet ideas here. So of course there's taking what the volunteers normally do and figuring out how to do that in a virtual space. But there's a lot of opportunities here for just project-based learning, depending on what your students are learning in your class, what skills they're developing, figuring out what we can create and provide as a resource to partners. I would encourage you though to be realistic. Think about what the actual skill set of your students are. And so if they're just learning how to do something, maybe we don't want to make promises to that partner that they're going to create like this expert level material or whatever it might be. So we need to be very realistic in our assessment of what students can actually provide. This is just kind of a sample of some of the things we have coming up this fall that are primarily remote. So Karen Barahona has done an awesome job. She's incorporated service learning into so many of the Spanish classes now. She's been working remotely with her students, frankly, for quite a while. Now, they did have the opportunity to meet in person and get on site a little bit, but they're able to easily transition to this remote space. We have partners that are giving her website content, brochures, medical forms, things that her students can then translate into Spanish for those organizations, which is a huge, huge need. So that's a great class coming up. I know Lori's on this call. Lori has been a part of our Jacket Philanthropy program for quite some time. Her HR course is taking on projects where students will be developing volunteer manuals, working on racial equity policy and procedures for different organizations and all kinds of things. I think she's up to 8 partners now for the fall. And students will also be learning how to write grant proposals for that course, which can all happen remotely. Julie's really taken the lead on working with Tony in our child psychopathology course. That was a real challenge for us because so many places don't know what they're doing because the schools don't know what they're doing, figuring out how to safely engage students, things like that. But Julie's done an awesome job connecting with these organizations. We think we have a plan in place, so we'll see we'll see how it all goes. Colleen is launching a personal finance service learning collaborative. So this is a small group experience that's tied on to her larger personal finance courses. This is the first time we're offering this. And so Colleen, you could have easily just said, nope, I'm out. We're going to wait till we're back in person. But she's moving forward with this, and we've got some great opportunities here for her students for that one. Amelia is offering her community health planning. They're going to be doing impact studies, working with organizations to determine the impact of COVID-19 on staff, on clients, on the community they serve. So that'll be really impactful and important. And then Ellen is also launching her new service learning course. This is a great example of a course that really empowers students. And so the students really get to design their community engagement projects in this course. It's a lot of work making those one-on-one connections for every single student based on their areas of interest. But it's so valuable in the end because they really get to dig into something that's important for them. So we would call that more of an exploratory model for those projects. I think a lot of those faculty members, I see your names on my list here, so we can open it up if folks have questions for you of what you're doing. I see that Amy is here, so I am going to pause for a moment and I'm going to invite Amy. Let me see if I can promote you here. If you want to turn on your mic and take a few minutes to share how your summer class went.
Yes, thank you. My video, I think, is loading here in a second. I actually, just before this call, got off of the culmination of one of my service learning projects with my course. So, and it was a Facebook Live that we did. We provided some education to parents and families in Zambia, actually. So my course is tied to a graduate level. I'm in the Communication Sciences and Disorders program. So it's a graduate level speech therapy course, and it's integration. So we integrate information that they learn in class with clinical application. So we've converted it to a service learning course. Last year was our first year, so we were able to do the first year in person. And now this year, obviously, we're doing it remotely, which has been interesting. I think it has helped the students. I taught some courses in the spring, and so finishing out those remotely, we do have more engagement from the students in that course because of the community collaboration within it. I think it is, you know, the students have voiced that they felt like it was beneficial, that it was more engaging. It gave a purpose rather than, you know, logging in. And we try so hard in our online courses, and we've all learned a whole lot more over the summer, you know, when we have some time to be able to engage our students in regular courses. But this is, you know, the service learning component was able to then put meaning and connect them with community partners who are actively doing what they're studying to do or are related. So, you know, we're speech therapy, but we work with the Berea Police Department. We worked with a phenomenal organization, Pregnant with Possibilities, Seeds of Literacy. Like Christy had mentioned, we really were intentional with trying to keep our partners in Cleveland. We realized early, you know, on in the planning process that being in this virtual component really took down all of the borders and boundaries of who we could work with. But we really do still feel like it is very, very important to be able to collaborate with our partners in our own backyard. Within our program, we have a long-standing relationship with different organizations in Lusaka. We have an international part of our graduate program. And so in doing some of our projects in the spring, two of our partners had voiced their wants to continue and further their projects and do kind of an extension of those projects. And because both, I co-teach this integration service learning course with Dr. Amy Tepper, and we both are involved in the Zambia piece, and we thought, well, this is a great opportunity. We needed included more partners than we had last year because our cohort is bigger. So that was an opportunity to then extend it, provide more opportunities for different students to be able to interact and learn about those organizations. So we had 2 partners in Zambia, actually one in Toledo, a homeless shelter in Toledo, and then 4 other partners in the Cleveland area. And yeah, we created content for either the volunteers and the workers within those organizations to then provide information and resources for literacy. We've developed content for their education programs and other areas. With the Berea Police Department, we did some education on autism spectrum disorder and what that looks like in teenagers and what behaviors they may be able to recognize and how to help them with their interactions. So, there were a lot of different things that we were able to do in a completely remote way. I will say that, there were definitely challenges that we didn't anticipate. I think, if you were teaching in the fall or have any interaction with online teaching, students, it's a lot easier for students to disconnect and not be as interactive as if you're in a room with them. So it was a little bit harder to have check-ins. Lessons learned from our end is we will have more assignments as far as, even just a summary of, what you've done over the last 2 weeks and where are you in your process, because, we talked about it in our course. We were very intentional with saving space and saving time to have these conversations, but it's very easy. We learned that it was very easy for them to provide this brief overview that we weren't really able to see the details. And, some of them maybe waited a lot later than we would have anticipated to really dig deep into the project. So, more frequent accountability for check-ins was one of our lessons that I would recommend for anybody doing this in the future remotely. And then kind of on that same path of creating other ways for them to share what they're doing, making it interactive within the classes. Kind of, we need to put our thinking caps on, and I love to have this discussion towards the end of this, of brainstorming what other people are doing as far as creatively engaging our students in communicating and talking about their projects. The last piece that I wanted to touch on, and then I'll pass the mic back, but Chrissy, you had also commented on this being a collaborative, a collaboration between the faculty and the students and the partners to be able to all learn from each other. That was something that I felt was much harder to communicate and to get our students to buy into this semester. And I don't know if it was just the makeup of the cohort. Previously, we've traveled to Zambia with them, and so we've worked collaboratively in that manner. And so we had that bled over to last summer. This summer, our groups very much took it on, I think, more as a kind of a student project rather than a full collaboration. So it took a lot to really encourage them to reach out and ask questions, and no matter how much we reached out, we weren't getting a whole lot back. So communication, that collaboration piece, definitely need to continue to work on. But I think we had great feedback from our partners. They were very appreciative of the work that they were doing and the collaborations that they were able to have with our students. So, and we'll talk more, but please feel free to reach out. I love the service learning component. So if anybody is thinking about getting into it and have questions, or anybody who's in it and we just want to brainstorm, because obviously this is a learning process for all of us, I'm happy to chat with you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really, really appreciate it. And Amy, who both teach this course, it's a great model because, what they did when they were initially planning and piloting is they kind of created a list of the key areas of skills, knowledge that their students had gained and were ready to apply. And that's the list that we were able to share with our partners to say, if any of this looks relevant to you and your organization, please reach out. And really they did customized program planning and project planning with each and every partner, sitting down with them, finding out what their needs were, kind of going back and forth on what the students could create and tangibly work on together with them. So really a great model, and we appreciate the fact that you all were willing to continue doing it this summer. And I know your students and partners both got a lot out of it. So So thanks, Amy. And Amy will stick around, I hope, and then we can pick her brain a little bit more. We're almost done here. So if you've got questions, we're almost to the end. I did want to provide just a snapshot of what we're hearing from some of our partners. This is just a snapshot. And as I said at the beginning, these things could have changed in the last hour. I'm not sure. But these are some examples of things that we're hearing from partners about immediate needs or interest areas. So Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries, they run a number of amazing programs, primarily serving individuals who are experiencing homelessness, but they also have reentry programs, job skills programs, all kinds of things. Especially for their programs for those experiencing homelessness in some of their residences right now. They're in desperate need of donations for various items for those families and individuals. And they're also interested in having students create workshops, activities, book clubs, art nights, I mean, any of those kind of things for residents within their various programs and spaces that they can do. They said they've had some hosted via cell phone, things like that. And so they're open to ideas there. MedWish International, wow, they are in an interesting place. For those of you who aren't familiar with MedWish, they repurpose medical supplies that are sent all over the world. So as you can imagine, their services are in very high demand right now. And they opened limited in-person volunteering with major PPE and spacing and all kinds of safety efforts to make sure that it's safe. But they really, really are in need of folks to come and help them fulfill their mission. Lake Erie Inc. is an awesome creative writing space based on the east side of Cleveland, and they have moved all of their programs remotely, and they're doing a fantastic job. They have tangible workshops like college essay workshops to a national program called, well, I guess international, called Write the World, where students are engaging in sharing narratives and stories with students from all over the world. So they are looking for volunteers who might be interested in creative writing and things like that. Seeds of Literacy has become such a fantastic partner of ours in the last couple years. They have moved all of their programs and services to teletutoring and video tutoring. And so they've got a lot of opportunities that they're looking for folks to engage with adult literacy tutoring there. We are seeing a lot of our partners exploring and stepping in to meet the gap for safe daytime spaces. So if kids are not in school and their parents have to work and they do not have finances or safe options for childcare, we have heard from some partners that they are going to be stepping up to meet that need. So Rainey Institute, they're a wonderful music program. They are doing some daytime programming, tutoring, academic help, things like that, that they're in need of some in-person volunteers. Metro is doing work addressing social isolation, so they're having volunteers call seniors and other folks, checking in and providing resources. Boy, the food bank, they've got their hands full. They are distributing to nearly 2,000 families a week at this point. They just learned that the National Guard will still be on site with them at least through the end of September, but they're still in need of some volunteers and some remote work related to some advocacy work. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Coreytown, Berea. It is almost right on campus. It is right on Bagley Road. It's the big high-rise apartments. It's a CMHA public housing space primarily for low-income seniors. We have built an amazing relationship there, and it's been really sad that we haven't been able to get over there and do our community meals together and all the other programs we usually do. So we're looking to continue sending letters, just notes of encouragement, things like that from BW to the residents there. UH Hospitals is looking for some video content for kids while they're at the hospital. The Cleveland Public Library is exploring the options of doing some virtual story times and activities. And Us Together is a great organization serving refugee families, and they have some structured programs that they have moved remotely. And then they're also open to other types of workshops and ideas that people may have. So as you can see, there's some spaces that are really looking for activity and others that are pretty structured. So just to wrap up here and recap, we are here to help you connect to partners. We are here to help you figure out how to fit this in with the curriculum that you already have. I'll show you a resource in just a second called GivePulse, where you can have your students track everything that they're doing. We do assessments of everything we do, don't we all? But at the end of our service learning courses, we do a big service learning survey for all those students, and we can share those reports with you. For those of you that are in the midst of your promotion and tenure process, data from those surveys can be really helpful for you because generally students have really good feedback about these experiences. And I love the feedback that says, this class was so hard, but I learned so much. We hear that a lot. We can come in and help you with any type of orientation and training related to community engagement. And then all the really fun stuff like background checks, not necessarily transportation right now, but any of those logistics that your students need to help get started in service, we can help you to navigate those. And any other wild ideas. We are always looking for new ideas. It's not just Julie and I doing this work. We have a whole team. It's the worst name for a committee because it's called Slack, and they're the least slackers on campus. They do so much work. But this is our Service Learning Advisory Council, made up with representatives from across the school. So big round of applause for all of you that are here and continue to support us and do this good work across your departments and schools. So this is just a screenshot of GivePulse. It's an online platform, bw.givepulse.com. It syncs with our registration and records system. So if you teach a service learning course, it automatically syncs with your course roster. You can go in and see how many hours your students have completed on their site. You can collect reflection activities in here. There's a lot of tools for courses. The other good thing about GivePulse is it's a space where students can go to just find volunteer opportunities. They can go on and search by issue area, location, things like that. I will tell you, if you go in right now, there's nothing in there. We went in when everything went remote and we were not allowed to promote service opportunities off campus, and we pulled everything down. We are in the process of, over the next 2 weeks, getting everything back up and running. So we will be inputting some opportunities, and our partners know that they can also go back in. So don't be alarmed if you go in there and you see absolutely nothing. We know that that's the case. They just launched a brand new tool because of all the remote work that's happening. So if your students are going to be doing a research project for a partner, or they're going to be creating a new brochure, or creating some kind of material or something, you can have your students now. GivePulse has a project planning tool. So kind of like Amy said, you can build in assignments, you can build in checkpoints. You can say by this date, you need to select your topic for what you're going to do, and you need to submit a written proposal. You need to, have a planning meeting and send me the notes. You need to have an outline. So you can set all these benchmarks in GivePulse, and students have to upload those, notes or evidence or whatever it is to you, so that you can kind of keep track of where students are. We're not going to go through all this, but again, we have lots of tools and resources. Reflection, there's so many cool technology things out there. I'm sure many of you are using things like this in your courses anyway, but different ways to get students connecting what they're thinking and doing with their partners to what you're learning in class. I do feel it's important to share this, that given the current context of racial justice in this country, we have to be explicit about the intersections of racial justice and our community engagement efforts. So many of the issues that we are working on and addressing through these programs are really rooted in historic systemic racism, institutional racism, things like that. We need to be having these conversations with students. These are the points for critical reflection. Even just thinking about issues of power and privilege in community service. As I said earlier, how does it feel to be the recipient of service, right? How does a student's identity impact the experience that they're going to have at that site? And recognizing that our students come to these experiences from a variety of backgrounds. So we do have students that are serving in their home communities, or are serving at organizations that maybe they were the recipients of once. We need to be cognizant of that in our communication, in how we frame these experiences. So these are all points that Julie and I have been working to build more resources around, to incorporate into our orientations. But these can't be just one-time one-time conversations. We really want to see these kind of woven throughout all of our courses, getting students more comfortable with their own identities and thinking about the work that they're doing and the impacts that they're having. You'll see the line, "Service is not simple." That's a great article that we use a lot. So we have a program coming up in May. I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but for those of you that are new or considering getting into the world of community engagement, it's a 3-day, actually it's 2.5 days immersion program, kind of a really deep dive into community engagement and service learning. And the goal is for you to walk out with a tangible syllabus, whether it's a brand new class or a renewed, kind of a reframed class. The goal is to help you create that and to get you connected to some resources and some peer colleagues that can also do some idea sharing with you. So that was a lot. We still have some time left here though, so I'm going to open it up for questions. And then we can certainly have a space too if there's folks who are teaching in the fall that have specific questions for that. So I will check the chat box here. You can raise your hand or put it in the chat box. If you want me to unmute you, I can do that. And I will say, Julie and I are continuing our outreach to partners. We still have some partners who were furloughed over the summer, organizations that are so tied to the schools that we haven't been able to finalize their programming. Ellen, do we have any partners working on environmental issues, outdoor projects? Great question. I don't have one off the top of my head, but I know we do have partners that have those types of things. So we can certainly explore that for you. Jim has some ideas here. Jim, let me see if you can unmute yourself. Did I set that?
Yeah, I know Frank Lebo internally is working on those things. We also have an environmental sustainability group in the School of Natural Sciences, Mathematics, and Computing. And we have actually partnered with the Western Reserve Land Conservancy and also the Metro Parks Watermark Station. Is that what it's called? Out in Parma? Watershed, I'm sorry. So I know that we have some informal partnerships with those groups.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jim. And Julie has mentioned the West Creek Conservancy. So we definitely have folks we can check in with to see. I know, oh goodness, why can I not think of, Katie Flynn is teaching a class this fall that is a bio course, and it's all outdoor. The service learning project is usually with the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And so last time I checked with them, yep, it was still on.
I believe it is. If you'd like me to check on that, or if you want to check on it.
Yeah, I can check in with her, sure.
Okay.
So I know she was trying to figure out the transportation piece, because we can be outside, but if we can't get students there, that's the problem. So that was an issue for a lot of our programs.
I would say this is Karen Monroe. I'm pretty sure she's figured out transportation issues, and it'll be a shortened day trip rather than an overnight field trip.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. Amelia says, in meeting with partner organizations for the semester, I was able to speak with a past student who's now working for the organization. Yes, we love when that happens, and we see a lot of that. It's funny when we make new connections or when we visit new partners, they always tend to bring down their BW alumni, whether they've been a service learning student or not. So yeah, we've got quite a few folks who either make their way into this work because of service learning or general involvement with the Brain Center, things like that. So that's great, Amelia. I'm curious what organization that was. That's exciting. Julie says, I often see and work with many first-year students who like to take advantage of alternative breaks and large-scale events. Great question. What are we doing, right? So alternative breaks will be remote, which means they're not traveling. And actually, they won't happen over breaks this year because the student team really feels strongly that people are actually going to want to break by the time Thanksgiving rolls around. They're not going to want to log in for some remote experience. So I can say we have 3 programs in development for fall, all with partners that we have long-standing relationships with. One is the San Antonio Food Bank, and we will also be bringing in the Cleveland Food Bank for that one. One is with an organization called the Rice Center. They're based in Chicago. They're an organization for youth who have experienced trauma, and it's kind of a therapeutic in a residential program for those kids. And the other one, why am I blanking? Oh, the other one is our Suicide Prevention and Awareness Walk. And so the walk isn't happening, but students are working on each of those, and we will offer those this fall in some sort of remote format where students will be doing remote projects with the partners, trainings, education sessions, things like that. The good thing is alternative breaks will be free this year because we're not traveling. And we will explore what spring is going to look like pretty quickly into the fall semester. We'll make that decision. For the big service days, we're not doing that. Julie's on here. She can talk about our.
Right. So on the co-curricular side, we will still be offering our Super Saturdays, which are about once a month. They're usually projects that can accommodate around 20 people, but we will be doing those remotely. So some of that might be take and make activities. Maybe students will take materials to make a Project Linus blanket, or there's a variety of things that we can work with our student team to plan. And then for our weekly programs, we won't have our full repertoire because some of our partners aren't able to engage remotely, or at least they're not sure that they are yet. But some of those will still take place. There'll be a student leader. It will just be a virtual volunteer opportunity.
Thanks. And yeah, we will continue to update. Give Pulse is the place to go to find real-time event opportunity information. And also follow our social media on any platform that you're on. We're just BW Brain Center. And we always post our upcoming events and opportunities and updates there. So that's another way to stay connected.
I just thought of another way for engaging those first year students. We are doing, our Jackets Engaged student team is doing a ton coming up related to voter engagement, and they actually are still looking for some more team members. So our application for that program is online, and students can participate in their programs and events without becoming a student leader. So another opportunity.
That's great. And if you have opportunities that you'd like to be engaging more students in, please share those with us. We love collaborating. We're happy to help promote your opportunities as well. So, and it's always good for us, even if you don't want us to be involved, to let us know what you're doing, because when we're calling partners and we're meeting with partners, it's always good for us to have that reference of who else is connecting with them. Sometimes we get surprised. They'll say, oh yeah, I've been working with so-and-so for 10 years and we had no idea. So, feel free to share any of those kind of updates as well. I do, if folks who are teaching, oh, Lisa, hi, we miss you. If folks are teaching in the fall and have any questions, we're happy to think through some of those together. We certainly, I know I have a lot of appointments coming up with folks specific to your classes. So if we don't have anything for the group, that's okay.
Christy, do you want to share our how we're scheduling appointments? Obviously, you can always email us, but we are using Microsoft Bookings now, and you can select a faculty meeting with one of us. What's the exact login for that, Christy? I'm sorry.
Gosh, you can find it. It's on our MyBW page. It's on our Facebook page. Let me find the link here. We just created this.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I don't remember.
You're good. You're quizzing me. Let's see. If you go to tinyurl/book-with-brain, that is our very creative website to get to the booking page. So, and we're prioritizing that for students who may not want to pop into the office and things like that. It makes it easier for them to get on our calendars easily.
Really, we're encouraging students not to pop into the office
right.
for safety reasons.
Yep.
I'll start with something. I mean, I know we're meeting on Monday. Christy, hi, it's Ellen, and hi, Julie. But do you have some specific things you might want all of us who are doing any of this stuff this semester to put on our syllabus? Like, do you have a statement with all of that, like how to book an appointment and how to go to Give Pulse and
yes, that's a great point, Ellen. We will compile that for everybody. Thank you for putting that on our radar. We do have all of that, and we should get that to you. So let me work with
than each trying to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let me work with Julie. And actually, Julie also has some language and dates that if you're willing to include for related to the elections as well. So yeah, we'll get all the policies, all the contacts, all that stuff. We will get to you for your syllabus. That's a great point.
Super. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else we can help with?
Julie, is there a particular infographic or handout that you're looking for? Like what subject matter?
Hi, no, I was just following up from what Ellen had said about putting something in a syllabus. But if you, because I advise first year students and I work with them on tutoring, if there was just something very small that I could, hand out to students, send to them by email or put on our Blackboard page, that would redirect them to your booking site or some of the information that you have about the Brain Center, that would be great.
Sure, that's a great
Awesome,
idea.
thank you.
Mhm. Well, thanks everyone. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate all the work that you do all the time, but especially in these challenging times. And yeah, we look forward to connecting and just keeping this work going. So thanks for being
Absolutely.
here.
Thanks, everyone.